Most people are one decision away from burning significantly more fat every single day. Not a harder workout, not a stricter diet. One decision about how they walk. Here is what the research shows that most fitness content skips over. Walking is not a consolation prize for people who cannot run. It is a precisely controllable metabolic tool. One that professional athletes, competitive physique coaches, and longevity researchers consistently rank as the most sustainable fat-burning activity a human body can perform. The reason most people do not get results from walking is not that walking is too easy. It is that they are doing it wrong. They are walking without any of the strategic inputs that transform a pleasant stroll into a genuine fat-burning session. What follows are 9 specific changes, backed by the mechanism behind each one, that collectively transform how your body responds to walking. You do not need all 9. Even 3 or 4 applied consistently will produce results that surprise you. Tip 1. Walk fasted in the morning. The single highest leverage change most people can make to their walking routine costs nothing and requires no equipment. Walk before breakfast. When you wake up after an overnight fast of 10 to 14 hours, your insulin is at its daily low point. Your liver glycogen, the stored sugar your body uses as its first fuel source, is partially depleted. Your body is already in a hormonal state that favors fat as a fuel source before you take a single step. A walk in this state does not just burn calories. It specifically and preferentially draws from stored fat, including visceral fat, the deep abdominal fat that sits around your organs and drives the chronic inflammation associated with metabolic disease. Research comparing fasted morning walking to fed state walking consistently shows higher fat oxidation rates during the fasted walk, not because more total calories are burned, but because the ratio of fat to glucose being used as fuel is significantly higher. Your body is pulling from the storage you actually want to reduce. The length does not need to be impressive. 20 to 30 minutes of moderate fasted walking in the morning, done consistently, produces a fat-burning environment that carries metabolic benefits into the rest of the day. Tip 2. Add incline. The single most powerful calorie multiplier in walking flat walking is fine. Incline walking is a different exercise wearing the same clothes. Research shows that a 5% incline increases calorie burn by over 50% compared to flat walking at the same pace. A 10% incline more than doubles it. But the number that matters more than total calories is muscle engagement. Because muscle tissue burned during incline walking is the tissue that increases your resting metabolic rate permanently. Incline walking specifically recruits your glutes, hamstrings, and deep core stabilizers, the large muscle groups that are largely passive during flat walking. When these muscles are challenged repeatedly, they adapt. They become denser. They require more energy to maintain even at rest. Your metabolism rises not just during the walk but continuously afterward. If you have access to a treadmill, a 15-minute incline session at 7 to 10% grade produces more metabolic benefit than 45 minutes of flat walking. If you walk outside, find hills. Even a gentle hill walked briskly engages the posterior chain in ways flat walking simply does not. Tip 3. Walk after every meal. The blood sugar intervention of all the strategic walking habits. This one may have the greatest long-term impact on visceral fat specifically, and it requires only 10 to 15 minutes per meal. When you eat, blood glucose rises. Your pancreas releases insulin to manage that rise. In a sedentary person, elevated insulin during the post-meal window actively suppresses fat burning. Your body is in storage mode, not burning mode. Glucose that is not immediately used gets converted and stored, including as visceral fat. When you walk within 20 minutes of finishing a meal, your leg muscles begin absorbing glucose directly from your bloodstream without requiring insulin to do it. The blood sugar curve flattens. The insulin spike is blunted. Your body transitions out of storage mode significantly faster. Done 3 times a day, after breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Post-meal walking is one of the most powerful interventions for insulin sensitivity available without medication. And insulin sensitivity is the underlying variable that determines whether your body uses fat as fuel or stores it. 10 minutes is enough. A gentle pace is sufficient. The mechanism requires movement, not intensity. Tip 4. Add weight to your walk. A weighted vest or a loaded backpack carrying 10 to 15% of your body weight increases calorie burn per step by 10 to 20% without changing your pace, perceived effort significantly. But the more important effect is structural. Every step with added load forces your core, hips, and stabilizer muscles to work harder to maintain balance and posture. Over weeks and months, this builds genuine functional strength in the muscles that support your spine and pelvis, the same muscles that determine your posture, your stability, and your resting metabolic rate. The beauty of weighted walking is that it provides a progressive overload mechanism. As you adapt, you add weight. As you add weight, the adaptation continues. You are not just walking, you are building a stronger, more metabolically active body with every session. Start with a modest load, 5 to 8 kilograms, and build gradually. Your joints will adapt if the progression is sensible. Your metabolism will thank you throughout the day. Tell me in the comments, have you tried weighted walking or incline walking before? Which one have you found more effective? If this is already changing how you think about your walks, subscribe. If you want more people to find this information, tap the like button. Tip 5. Vary your pace within every walk. This is the tip most people never use and most fitness content never explains fully. Walking at a single consistent pace session after session is the direct path to metabolic adaptation, the same process that causes the walking plateau described in research on exercise efficiency. Your body will calculate the energy cost of your standard walk within weeks and reduce the calories it burns per step to match its improved efficiency. Pace variation prevents this adaptation by never allowing your body to settle into the optimal efficiency pattern. The mechanism is straightforward. When you alternate between a brisk 2-minute surge and a comfortable 3-minute recovery, your heart rate fluctuates between zones. This fluctuation forces your cardiovascular system and metabolic pathways to continuously adjust, a process that burns more energy than sustained state exercise at any single intensity and builds something called metabolic flexibility. Metabolic flexibility is your body's ability to rapidly switch between glucose and fat as fuel sources depending on demand. People with high metabolic flexibility burn fat more readily during low-intensity periods and recover faster between intense efforts. It is one of the most important metabolic characteristics associated with low body fat percentage in research populations. You do not need to sprint. 2 minutes of walking faster than feels completely comfortable, followed by 3 minutes of recovery, repeated throughout your session. That is the entire protocol. Tip 6. Walk after your strength training. This is the sequence that almost nobody gets right, and the reason why is buried in the physiology of fuel selection. During strength training, your body's primary fuel source is glycogen, the stored carbohydrate in your muscles. A good strength session significantly depletes those stores. In the window immediately after training, your muscle glycogen is low and your body's sensitivity to fat as a fuel source is high. Your hormonal environment, elevated growth hormone, reduced insulin, is more favorable for fat oxidation than at almost any other point in the day. A 20-minute walk immediately after training enters this hormonal window and pulls directly from fat stores. The same 20-minute walk taken at a different time of day would burn a mix of fat and glucose. Taken post-training, it burns predominantly fat. And unlike adding more cardio or more interval training to your post-workout routine, walking is low enough intensity that it does not interfere with muscle recovery. It actually enhances recovery by increasing blood flow to trained muscles, accelerating the clearance of metabolic waste products, and reducing post-training inflammation, the specific inflammation that causes delayed onset soreness. You are burning fat, enhancing recovery, and reducing soreness simultaneously. 20 minutes, that is the investment. Tip 7. Track every step. The psychological multiplier. Most people believe they are moving more than they are. Research on self-reported activity levels consistently shows that people overestimate their daily movement by 30 to 50%. The person who believes they are walking 8,000 steps is typically walking 3,500. The moment you begin tracking, two things happen. First, you get accurate data, and accurate data is the only basis on which meaningful behavior change can occur. Second, you become aware of the specific periods in your day where movement is absent, and you begin spontaneously filling some of them. Tracking does not require an expensive device. Any smartphone step counter is sufficient. The goal is not the technology, it is the feedback loop. Set a minimum daily target, 10,000 steps is the research-supported threshold for meaningful metabolic benefit, and treat it as a non-negotiable baseline. Not a good day's effort. A minimum. The floor below which you do not drop. Once you are consistently hitting 10,000, push to 12,000, then 15,000. Each incremental increase in daily step count produces incremental increases in daily calorie burn that compound over weeks and months into meaningful body composition changes. Tip 8. Walk to manage cortisol, the invisible fat storage hormone. Most people trying to lose belly fat are sabotaging their efforts with excess stress, and the specific hormone that stress produces, cortisol, is one of the primary drivers of visceral fat accumulation. Cortisol signals your body to store energy in reserve, particularly around the abdominal organs. High cortisol environments favor fat storage and muscle breakdown simultaneously, the exact opposite of the body composition changes you are working toward. Intense exercise raises cortisol. Caloric restriction raises cortisol. Life stress raises cortisol. Walking lowers it. This is not a vague wellness claim. Cortisol levels are measurable, and walking consistently produces measurable cortisol reduction. The low-intensity, rhythmic, sustained nature of walking activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and recover branch, in a way that no high-intensity activity does. This is why elite physique athletes, even during intense cut phases, rely on walking as their primary cardio tool. Walking burns fat while keeping the hormonal environment favorable for fat loss. High-intensity cardio burns calories while potentially elevating the hormone that makes fat loss harder. If you are already training hard, already managing significant life stress, and already eating in a meaningful caloric deficit, walking is the one additional stimulus that helps rather than hinders. Tip 9. Align your nutrition with your walking. Every tip in this video is a multiplier. But a multiplier applied to 0 is still 0. Walking cannot create a fat-burning outcome inside a body that is consuming more energy than it expends. This is the biological reality that no strategic walking tip can circumvent. Your body burns stored fat when it needs more energy than it is currently receiving. Walking increases that energy need. But if food intake rises proportionally, which it often does unconsciously when exercise increases, the energy gap never opens and stored fat stays exactly where it is. The strategic combination that produces results is a moderate caloric deficit combined with sufficient protein and consistent walking. The protein component is not optional. When you are in a caloric deficit, your body has a biological incentive to break down muscle tissue as well as fat. Because muscle tissue is metabolically expensive, and the body treats it as a resource to be sacrificed during scarcity. Adequate protein, at minimum 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight daily, provides the amino acid supply that signals your body to preserve muscle while drawing on fat for the energy deficit. Walking combined with a modest deficit and adequate protein is one of the most well-researched body composition strategies in nutritional science. It is not exciting. It does not involve extreme restriction or extreme effort. It works because it works with your body's biology rather than against it. Now let me give you the specific daily structure that brings all 9 of these tips together into a practical routine. Morning. A 20 to 30-minute fasted walk before breakfast. Moderate pace, flat or inclined depending on your terrain. This sets your fat-burning pathway active before you eat. After each meal, a 10 to 15-minute gentle walk, not intense, just moving. This blunts the insulin spike, clears post-meal glucose from your bloodstream, and prevents the storage signal that sedentary eating produces 3 times a day. After strength training, a 20-minute moderate walk. This extends your fat-burning window, enhances recovery, and costs nothing in terms of muscle development or the next session's quality. Within your day, a minimum daily step target of 10,000, tracked and treated as non-negotiable. Phone calls walked. Parking taken at the far end. Stairs chosen when stairs exist. These incidental steps are not less valuable than dedicated walking sessions. They are equally counted by your biology. 1 to 2 sessions per week. Weighted vest or loaded backpack at a pace that challenges you. Incline added wherever possible. These sessions are where structural adaptation happens, where your body builds the denser, more metabolically active muscle tissue that raises your resting calorie burn permanently. This is not a difficult routine. It is not a demanding one. It is a consistent one. And consistency is the only variable that separates people who see results from walking from people who walk for years without visible change. Your belly fat is not a cosmetic problem. It is metabolically active tissue, producing inflammatory compounds, disrupting hormone balance, and driving the chronic disease risk that accumulates quietly over years. Reducing it through consistent, strategic walking is one of the most evidence-based things you can do for your long-term health. Not just your waistline, your brain, your cardiovascular system, your hormonal balance, your sleep, your mood, your longevity. All of it responds to this single habit done well. Which of these 9 tips are you adding to your walking routine first? Tell me in the comments. If you enjoy the quiet science behind how your body works, subscribe for more new videos every week. In the next video, we will explore something directly connected. What happens inside your fat cells specifically during fasted walking, minute by minute, and why the combination of an overnight fast with morning movement produces metabolic effects that neither habit produces alone. Your body is not failing you. It has been waiting for the right information. Now you have it.